We begin here in Japan, where the coronavirus state of emergency was lifted on Sunday for Tokyo and 8 other prefectures. It will remain in effect in Okinawa through July 11th. Tokyo, Osaka, and 5 other prefectures have now transitioned to focused restrictions. Bars and restaurants will not be allowed to serve alcohol after 7 p.m. The rules in Tokyo say customers can drink alone or in groups of 2, but can stay no longer than 90 minutes.
It's tough to make a profit with restrictions still in place. I only hope the pandemic will end so we can return to normal as soon as possible.
Tokyo confirmed 376 new cases on Sunday. That's up 72 from a week earlier. The 7-day average through Sunday is 388, up 1% from the week before. The minister in charge of the coronavirus response says the government is ready to declare another state of emergency if needed ahead of the Tokyo Olympics.
A rise in cases is highly likely as more people start moving around. We will not hesitate to declare another state of emergency, if necessary, to protect people's lives while keeping an eye on the healthcare system.
Across the country, health authorities confirmed more than 1,300 new cases on Sunday. 20 people have died. Workplace vaccinations will go into full swing from Monday. An electronics store held a practice session to get ready.
We
want to give our employees peace of mind, so our customers can come and shop with peace of mind.
The company aims to vaccinate 1,200 people a day and cover all of its 17,000 employees and their families. The minister in charge of the rollout, Kono Taro, hopes elementary and junior high school students will be able to get their shots during their summer break. He says there will be an announcement soon on vaccinating school children. In Brazil, the death toll from the coronavirus topped 500,000 on Saturday. That makes it the second country after the United States to reach that number. New daily cases averaged around 72,000 this week, and daily deaths continue to top 2,000. Only about 10% of the population has been vaccinated. President Jair Bolsonaro has been reluctant to implement basic preventive measures, such as limiting people's outings and movements, restricting economic activities, and requiring people to wear face masks. Opposition supporters and others held large protests against Bolsonaro in many cities, including Rio de Janeiro, on Saturday.
A gente está fazendo protesto contra esse governo Bolsonaro, genocida, que não comprou vacinas e não fez nada para cuidar da gente nesse último ano.
A report by the country's health authorities on Thursday warns of a further spread of coronavirus as the southern hemisphere heads into winter. It is unclear if effective measures will be taken. Israel's foreign minister has condemned Iran's newly elected president, saying he's committed to the country's nuclear ambitions and campaign of global terror. Ebrahim Raisi won a convincing victory in Iran's presidential election on Friday. The judiciary chief and conservative Islamic law scholar won around 62% of the ballots. Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid said on Twitter that Raisi is an extremist responsible for the deaths of thousands of Iranians. Israel asserts that Raisi is deeply involved in the repression of Iran's opposition. Lapid said Raisi's election should prompt renewed determination to immediately halt Iran's nuclear program and put an end to its destructive regional ambitions. Raisi has indicated he plans to keep to the nuclear deal with world powers while maintaining a hardline stance of not compromising easily with the United States. A member of Myanmar's national soccer squad who plans to seek asylum in Japan has visited a Buddhist temple to pray for peace in his country. On Sunday, Pie Liang Aung visited the temple in the western Japanese city of Osaka. He says he prayed for the victims of the crackdown and for a return of peace in Myanmar. He urges the people of Japan to support that cause. Last month, before a World Cup qualifier match in Japan, he displayed a three-finger salute in a show of protest against the military crackdown on civilians in Myanmar. He refused to fly back home with his teammates on Wednesday, fearing punishment once he returned. The United Nations marked World Refugee Day on Sunday amid a surge in the number of refugees worldwide. Last year, it says there were over 82 million refugees worldwide, including those who were domestically displaced. It's the highest number since the UN High Commissioner for Refugees was set up in 1950. The biggest group was the 6.7 million people displaced from Syria. 850,000 refugees from Syria have been admitted by neighboring Lebanon. They now account for 1 out of every 8 people in the country. Lebanon has been undergoing a period of political turmoil. No cabinets have been formed since the administration resigned after a huge explosion in August last year. The economic situation is also getting worse as the coronavirus spreads. The currency is worth only about a tenth of its former value. Syrian refugees bear the brunt of widespread discontent. Someone set fire to the tents of Syrian refugees in December last year. The wages of Syrian refugee workers have been reduced to protect local agriculture. Lebanese farmers have seen sales of grapes plunge and fertilizer prices surge due to the pandemic. This refugee works as a day laborer to support his wife and 4 children. His income has fallen by about 20%.
My family is allowed to stay here. I cannot say no to lower pay. I need to find something to make some money.
As the pandemic continues to hurt the economies of host countries, the friction between locals and refugees keeps growing.
We estimate that almost 90% of the Syrian refugees in Lebanon are now below the poverty line. 25% of the Lebanese population has also passed this very tragic threshold. So you can understand how important it is to help both.
The refugee agency is calling for international support, saying some countries bear most of the burden of accepting displaced people. Organizers of the Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games have invited members of the media to view the athletes' village in the waterfront area of Tokyo. The 44-hectare village has an operations zone, a large residential zone, and a village plaza. The media was shown the plaza, which spans over 5,000 square meters, on Sunday. It has a general store, a bank, a post office, and a cafe. The building features about 40,000 pieces of timber from various municipalities in Japan. The residential zone can house 18,000 athletes and staff. As the coronavirus pandemic remains a major concern, an outpatient fever center and a station to collect specimens for testing will be set up. Olympic participants can arrive in the village 5 days prior to their competition and will leave within 2 days afterwards. Paralympic participants can begin their stay at the village 7 days prior to their competition. The village will officially open on July 13th. Those were the stories for this hour.
In Britain, Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt are the finalists in the election to replace Prime Minister Theresa May. The result will be announced in late July. Iran shoots down a drone belonging to the U.S. military. Iranian officials say the unmanned aircraft was in their country's territory. U.S. officials say it was in international airspace. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un welcomes Chinese President Xi Jinping to Pyongyang with a large ceremony. Several hundred Rohingya refugees gather at the Kutupalong camp near the Bangladeshi city of Cox's Bazar to mark World Refugee Day.
Talks aimed at reviving the Iran nuclear deal have been adjourned in Vienna, with indications that a deal could be close. That's despite Israel's new prime minister urging world powers not to negotiate with the new hardline Iranian president. 500 red roses have been placed on the world-famous Copacabana beach in Brazil as the number of people who've died with coronavirus passes the 500,000 mark. Experts fear the outbreak could worsen as winter approaches there. Armenians have finished voting in a snap parliamentary election which will decide the country's future. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan called the early vote to try to diffuse political tensions after months of protest. And Taiwan has welcomed the arrival of a plane carrying US coronavirus vaccines, describing it as another example of their country's solid friendship.